I desperately needed something to create ground form for some ruins I was making, so I dove balls deep into YouTube to find out how to make some modelling compound, a cheaper version of Sculptamold. I grabbed my food processor and started smashing up some bog roll and newspaper with plenty of water, squeezing out all the excess water and threw it in the oven to dry it all out. I chucked it back in the blender to try and break it down further, then threw it all in a wee box, added the equivalent weight of casting powder, gave it a good shake, and it turned out like this. It's about the texture of insulation pulp, which I've also seen used for this same process instead of paper. The idea at this point is just to add a bit of water to form a cottage cheese-like consistency, then slap it on your model, give it 5 minutes, and you're able to smooth it out just with water on your fingertip. Turned out really clumpy, difficult to work with, and I lost far too much time for disappointing results. I think the reason was because the plaster covering the paper stopped the paper absorbing enough water to really break down the fibres in there. I wanted something much easier to work with and quicker to produce. So first things first, I had to break down the tissue paper quickly and effectively. I had a stroke. Don't panic, a stroke of genius. I went to find my shredder. You can't just put bog roll in the shredder, it's not strong enough to flick the switch to activate it. I folded a small piece of newspaper just to start the shredder, and then kept feeding in the tissue paper centrally to keep it going. The result was great, nice small pieces of tissue paper that will sup up moisture really quickly. The next stage was testing the order of proceedings. I threw some of the toilet paper in a cup, added some plaster, about 50-50, and slowly added some water, again to roughly the consistency of cottage cheese. Chucked it on a bit of foam board and tried forming it. It was much easier to move about, and after about 5 minutes I tried smoothing it. It was much better than my first attempt, but it didn't want to smooth particularly well, but definitely an improvement. I still wasn't satisfied, and I think it was for the same reason. The plaster's attracting all the water. For my next attempt, I mixed up some plaster with water in a cup first. I left it pretty runny, so when I added the bog roll there was enough liquid to soak into the tissue paper. And with a good mix, you can visibly see the difference doing it this way. This was so much easier to work with, and it smoothed nicely, it even dried pretty quickly. After about 20 minutes, it even took some texturing with a rolled up piece of aluminium foil. No drills or wire brushes, no food processors, no immersion blenders, just a shredder and a stick for mixing. I know what you're thinking. Cap, I don't have a shredder. For the amount of money you save on Sculptamold by buying plaster, 1.3 kilograms of Sculptamold for the same price of 5 kilos of plaster, and I hope you already own a few bog rolls. The cheapest shredder I found on Amazon was 20 quid, and you can shred all those letters you get through the post, protecting yourself against theft of personal information, and instead of throwing those letters in the recycling bin, you can use them in your compost as the brown element and grow your own pet potato.